Truck Talk Media.
C10 Talk 287. How about a little Tremayne and Tom, some used parts. These are a couple of my used parts guys, and they've been doing it a long damn time. So let's just jump right into this one. It was a long pod. You get a couple guys that yip and yap, and that's mostly me and Tremayne. Tom is just chilling like a villain with a gold tooth filling. But all in all, it's good to get a pulse on what these guys got going. So hopefully you guys had a great Mother's Day and everything's cruising along. Speaking of cruising along, we're coming up into that show season. Jump back to 286, Battle in Bama. They got a new location. That's going to be both on C10 and OBS. Remember, OBS_talk. I'm thinking I lost that. So if you're into that kind of stuff and you're into the 88, 98s, great since 88, jump over to OBS Truck Talk on social media, mostly on Instagram there. OBS Truck Talk, that's the new account. That will become the backup account if I get my old account, OBS_talk back. I hope I do. If you're listening and you've got any kind of insight and you know about Meta, Facebook, Instagram, hit me up, Ronnie at trucktalkmedia.com, Ronnie at trucktalkmedia.com. All right, again, this is a long one. I hope you guys enjoy it. I've got pod on top of pod. I'm sitting on 2 more, so I'm pretty stoked about that. A couple really good pods that I've been able to record, and we'll just keep getting them out for you guys. Questions, comments, concerns, ideas, hit me up, Ronnie at Truck Talk Media, RONNIE at Truck Talk Media. Pretty crazy. We've got a lot coming up here. Show season. We've got the intervention, slowdown, C10's in the park, C10 Fall Revival. You got the big one, the Get Down. I think that's about 6 months out. So some crazy, crazy shows coming up. 2024, life's good. All right, guys, I hope you have a great week. Thanks again for tuning in. Late. Hey guys, let me tell you about LMC Truck. Keeping generations on the road. Think about that. It's pretty deep. So whether your truck was handed down or something you went out and bought, odds are you were handed a bunch of paperwork, maybe a folder. In that folder was probably the catalog. You know the one. The most up-to-date and detailed catalog available today. It's like an encyclopedia for our trucks. Their website is just as detailed and informative. lmctruck.com. lmctruck.com. So whether you're restoring old memories or creating new ones, LMC Truck is here to help. They're more than just a parts company. They truly understand the lifestyle and passion of owning a classic truck. So get out there and get to work on your truck and know that LMC is here to help. You can get online, lmctruck.com, and order your free catalog today. Keeping generations on the road. lmctruck.com. All right. What up, C10 Talk? We're coming at you, C10 Nation, a little Tremayne and Tom. And I've been teasing these guys for a while on this one. This is one of those pods that kind of gets generated in my head. And I really just wanted to kind of talk truck parts. But from this perspective, these are probably 2, if not, obviously in the top 5 of my first calls when I'm looking for an OG used style part. I've got Tom from Truckin' Crazy. He's right here in my backyard in Arizona. We've got Tremayne Lee, who is in Cali. And Tremayne, you're known, kind of on that West Coast. Obviously, you've come out to Phoenix as well. So welcome both of you to C10 Talk.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so let's start with you, Tremayne. How the hell did you I was sitting there as we were talking. The first time, I'm pretty sure it was at Pomona. You had a 68, I remember it's kind of a white. At one point in its life, it was white. 68 front clip, and I was like, oh, I should buy that. And I think I bought a shit ton. I actually still have them, glove box doors. So I was at one point in my Queen Creek house where Tom has been. I was going to do a bunch of 67, 72 glove box doors as a backsplash. And anybody feel free to steal this idea. And I was gonna flip them back and forth. So they, you'd have the front facing and then you'd have the spid facing. And if you did that, they would kind of, from a physics geometry perspective, they would go together pretty well and you could make a pretty nice backsplash. And I wanted to even do valve covers either under or over. Nonetheless, I know I bought a whole crate and I still have them to this day, and that was at Pomona. So I look back on our interactions, and I love to give Tremayne shit, and he loves to take it and give it back. So Tremayne, how did you get into slinging parts?
Okay, first I got to tell, I'll make this quick. I got to tell the story of my first encounter with you that I remember, and it was Pomona when you bought all those glove box doors. If you don't mind me doing this.
No, I don't mind. I thought it was gay porn, but that's all right. You use whatever you want.
Okay, well, it's the second time that I met and interacted. Okay, we'll get that out of the way. So I had no social media back then at all. I was just slinging parts and doing my thing. I don't remember if I had a shop at that time or was working a shop. Anyway, I was just slinging parts on my own at swap meets and whatnot, a little bit on. And here comes this guy who comes in my Pomona spot, and he's got C10 Talk hat and socks and shirt and all this stuff. And he's talking a mile a minute, and he's like, "Oh man, I'm gonna buy this, I'm gonna buy that." He put together these two different piles, and there was a bunch of glove box doors and a bunch of parts. I'm gonna buy this stuff. I'm like, "All right, fine." He's like, "I'm C10 Talk," and I said, "I really don't care or know what C10 Talk is, but good for you." And rambling on, and I was probably pissed off, grumpy old guy. And you put all this stuff in a pile, and you're like, "I'll be back in a little bit. I'm going to go make some money, and I'll come back and buy this stuff." And I said, "If you're not buying it right now, put it back where you found it." And you're like, "No, I'm going to buy it." And I said, "Put it back where you found it." And you walked off, and I put it all back where it was. Now I'm pissed off at this C10 Talk guy. And who is C10 Talk? What is C10 Talk?
Nice.
So I didn't like you right out of the gate. Okay? Kind of my MO. I don't like people immediately. My first is not like, you came back, you bought all the stuff, blah, blah, blah. I still didn't like you because that's just how I am. And the whole time I'm just like, what is this C10 Talk? This is ridiculous. What is this guy's deal? He got socks and a hat and shirts and gloves and koozie and every other word out of his mouth. C10 Talk, check it out. Podcast. I didn't know what a podcast was. I didn't know what Instagram was. None of that.
Hey, look at those socks. Look at those things.
I got to have a pair of those. So to all the listeners out there now, Ronnie, I consider you a very good friend of mine. You're my brother. I would do anything for you, man. You are, I was so wrong, as I am quite often, but that was my first encounter with you, was at Pomona Swap Meet. And I was so out of date, behind the times, that I didn't have a clue what was going on at all.
Well, it all works out. Tom probably has the same stories. I'm like, hey, I'm going to buy this. I got this great idea. One of my favorite stories is a guy there's a whole group of guys, and they're actually 67, 72 guys. And I wonder if you've ever met them, Tremayne. Cody and Ben, and I'm trying to think, Todd. So Todd is the dad, and he builds 67 to 72 stuff that is, to the tens. And he builds it. He has the ultimate style, and they're all in Waxahachie. They're at C10s in the trailer park. Same. I love Ben's story. He's like, who's this fucking guy? He comes walking up. He's wearing socks and Vans and a C10 Talk hat, and his mouth's going so much faster than anything else. And he's like, and then he puts a mic in my face. And it might take a few interactions. And now, again, same thing with Ben. I love the dude, Todd, Cody, the father and the son. And yeah, it might take a little ice breaking for yours truly to win you over.
Yes, but it doesn't take long. And then you realize what a great guy Ronnie really is. But I'll tell you this: if you would have put a camera or a mic in my face at that Pomona, that would not have gone well for you. Because, like I said,
my God.
Yeah, I was like,
you're not the only one. It took me years to get guys to understand that. Even Todd, the guy I'm talking about, even to this day, they turned me down. They're like, no, I don't want to do it. And finally, I got Ben and his son to do it. And then, years later, they're like, okay, we get it now. So I might have been ahead of my time. That's maybe the only time I've ever been ahead of my in my time. So yeah, I get it.
That's funny. All right, so
I don't know, Tom. Yeah. So go ahead, Tremayne. How'd you get to slinging parts?
So I got my 72 stepper in about 96, which now is known as the Cran Box. And it wasn't long after that, I kind of just gone out on my own doing auto body and paint. The shop I worked at closed down, and I started flipping cars. And someone came up to me, and offered me a truck for sale, and I bought it. And it was a parts truck. So I took it all apart, and I thought, you know what? I haven't been a Pomona swap meet in years. I'm going to go up there and see what the truck seemed like, because I knew the trucks were pretty hot. So I went up there with this whole truck that I had parted out, all the parts, and did really well. And it just kind of snowballed from there. I was like, okay, I'm going to stick to the trucks. I like these trucks. Seems like they're a hot item right now. And so from there on, I just went out looking for trucks. And back then, I was buying whole parts trucks. And I mean, I was buying 3 to 5 of them a week regularly. And then at one point, I bought 5 short bed trucks from one guy at one time. And it just snowballed. You know, like I said, it just went nuts from there. And I just got to be a little bit well known at Pomona and Long Beach as the 67 to 72 guy. And so I kept it up, and I kind of got less and less doing body and paint, and more of just doing restoration work and slinging parts, you know. And here I am today, just still at it.
Do you find that it's well, here we'll get into that. So you got into it just by, obviously, you know, somebody sells you a truck, then you're just, you know, you're like, hey, did you find that it was hard to where to put all these trucks once you, I mean, that seems to be the hardest part.
Yes, and I had very limited space, so I would part out a truck in a day and a half max. I would just go absolutely attack mode on a truck and completely tear down. But back then, in the late 90s, early 2000s, I didn't cut frame brackets off. I didn't take nearly as much stuff as I do today, because there was no market. The trucks are everywhere. The world was flooded with 67 to 72s. They were on every street corner, every backyard, every field, everywhere. You go through the auto trader, and there would be 20 trucks being sold for dirt cheap, you know. And so I didn't keep all the small stuff. I only kept the good stuff. And the sad thing is, like, for instance, long bed beds, they got scrapped regardless, no matter how nice that long bed bed was. I never removed wheel tubs. I would stack up long bed beds like 4 high, and then take the forklift and put them on my trailer and take them to the scrap yard. And cabs, if a cab had more than 2 rust holes per rocker, or each rocker had more than 2 rust holes and a little spot on the floor, that cab went to scrap. Didn't even cut the roof off of them, because they're everywhere. They're everywhere. You know, there was no shortage of parts, so I only kept the good premium stuff. So I didn't really run into that problem, because I disposed of them as soon as I got them and took what I wanted off of them.
Well, and I got to assume, before we get into Tom's history, I got to assume that the problem ends up starting to be that you don't have the real estate. So obviously those 2 big ticket items, the bed, the cab, you're like, I got no room to sit on this. So it's better for me to move it and shake it down the road. And obviously guys aren't hitting you up for it. If they were, they wouldn't be, you know, sitting there and taking up space. So I get that.
Yes. And I remember the first time I sold a long bed bed, I was just blown away that somebody was willing to pay me $200 for a long bed bed. It's like, why would you buy a long bed bed? You can buy a whole truck for $300, take the bed off and throw the rest away, and you're there, you know. Or better yet, pull the rest of it out or sell some of the parts. But, you know, there was so much stuff that wasn't desirable. A long bed frame, C20 or C10, there was no way you were selling a long bed frame or anything off of it unless it was 5-lug. All 6-lug stuff, 6-lug axles, went to the scrap, unless they're a posi or a 308. Only thing anybody wanted back then was 5-lugs, and I would buy 2 or 3 5-lug half-ton trucks a month minimum. So I always had 3 or 4 5-lug setups sitting around, you know. So again, the stuff that was just no call for so much of the parts that, yes, looking back, if I'd have saved them, I'd have a gold mine. But at the time, I didn't have the real estate to do it, you know?
Yeah. It makes sense.
I get hot items, and that was it.
Yeah. You know, hindsight's 2020. If you could find some cheap land somewhere else and haul it all off and store it there. But, you know, at the time, nobody knew. I mean, that's everybody's story. So Tom, how'd you get into slinging parts?
It's pretty similar to Tremayne, just fixing up my own trucks. You'd go buy a truck to see if you could rob the tailgate off it, rob all the good parts off it for your project that you were doing, and then start parting out the rest of it, try to make your money back. And Yeah, it's pretty much it. Just did that back in Nebraska, and then got to Arizona, and it was like a gold mine out here. I mean, the trucks were so nice compared to Nebraska, and it was just one day after another, just going at it, chasing down trucks and tearing them apart.
At what point did you, Tom, make a we kind of heard Tremaynes, but where you're working, you move out here from Nebraska, you got a family, you're working, and then you're like, okay, I'm making enough money, and how can I make enough money to only do this, and walk us through that.
I always wanted to do it, but I came to Arizona for printing. They moved me out here, and I had a pretty good career doing that. That was my bread and butter, and the trucks and the parts were all just fun, and extra money. And finally, in about 2008, the printing industry went in the shitter, and that's when I really had to make a decision on whether or not I could start selling parts full time and make a go of it. And that's what I did. I just kind of jumped in and just went for it.
Yeah, well,
And it's
and
turned out
now
pretty. I mean, it's turned out pretty good. It's just
15 years later.
yeah,
Yeah. So, okay. So you guys both get into it kind of like you're a hobbyist enthusiast, and then you see that there's a need out there. The other thing I think, do you guys ever, think I'm in a phenomenal area to be slinging parts? Because, I always look at it. Tom, did you ever know Christian, kind of more of a square body guy,
oh
kind of
yeah,
got a
sure,
beard, used to do a
yeah,
lot of
Hitler.
square body stuff?
Yep,
he
Z.
he always had kind of a rule that as an Arizona guy, he would always try to hook up with somebody in like Minnesota, somebody up there, in the UP, if you will, Michigan, and their metal would just go to shit. And then he would always get together with somebody and by the truckload swap from interior to he would give him sheet metal, and then he would, vice versa. The other guy would give him interior parts. But you guys are both in, Sun Belt style states where the metal is still out there. It's in great shape. I mean, I just blown away sometimes at some of the trucks I still see out here. And, the interior takes a little bit of a hit, but that's why I think you guys can still do that and still find that metal. I assume.
Yep, and it for a long time after I moved to Arizona, I would be out scrounging parts, fenders, doors, a lot of sheet metal, and every summer we'd go back to Nebraska to visit family and stuff, and the whole truck would be full of doors and fenders and whatever you could fit in there, maybe a trailer if you wanted to haul that. And the stuff was all sold as soon as I got there, and it was just every summer that was part of the plan. Just
Tremayne, do you
taking a
get a
bunch of
lot of
stuff.
do you got a lot of orders from people back east? Now, because you
Yeah.
have you have a little bit more social media presence.
Yes. The biggest thing is shipping sheet metal is so expensive anymore that it usually kills the deal. But if it's a good enough piece, tailgates are one. I ship tailgates quite often. Um, but I don't have a guy right now, and I actually want to do this myself and take a load back east to either maybe Carlisle or Hershey. But I have in the past, I've had a number of guys that were my last guy was from Minnesota, and he came out here. He had a place in Pahrump, Nevada. He'd come out here to Nevada for the winter, and then go back to Minnesota in the summer. And he would do just that. He would hit all the swap meets, wrecking yards, everything. And he would come to my spot at Pomona early Saturday morning and buy every piece of sheet metal I had. Everything. Didn't matter. He said, if it's good enough for you to load on your trailer, it's good enough for me to take to Minnesota. And of course, I brought him the best of the best that I could, and he would occasionally bring me some soft parts from back there. We didn't do so much that straight trade, but we did occasionally. And I've had a number of guys like that. There was another guy years ago that did the trip out to Hershey and Carlisle, and he went back there like 4 times a year, I think. And he would buy whole trucks from me, parts from me, whatever it was. He wanted sheet metal. And I sold him something like 30 trucks in the course of, I don't know how many months it was. And then he actually hired me to go up to Norco and strip all these trucks down and load them into the 53 footers, and he would take 3 53 footers at a time back east, you know. And that was another really good hookup, because I would get a truck, I would call him right away. I'd be like, hey, I've got this truck on my trailer. And that was before, you know, if you want to send somebody a picture, it went in the mail. So but I'd call him up, I'd describe the truck, and quite often I would buy a truck, load it on my trailer, and go straight to Norco and dump it off and sell the truck right to him and be done with it. You know, like within, didn't own that truck anymore. And that was a kind of a nice gig for trucks that were questionable, you know?
Yeah. Do you ever struggle when other guys that, you know, for example, I know there's a guy, I think in the Pacific Northwest, I think he's in Oregon. He finally got out of the business. Do you ever struggle when you see that and you want to have so much cash on hand and work something out because a guy has so many parts and you're like, how do I get a hold of this?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I need this much money. I know I can make a lot of money off of this. And then have you, from a business perspective, have you either had to deal with that where you buy somebody else's parts or a shit ton of stuff somebody might have?
I have bought out a number of, usually it's the smaller guys, because I've usually the guys that are players in this and selling their large inventory, they're usually wanting a little more than I can pay. And then the logistics of, you know, for instance, a few years ago, I was going to buy out a guy up in the Bay Area, and his price was good on the parts, but what it was going to cost me to get him to San Diego just didn't pan out. But I mean, just recently I bought a guy out that was moving, and it was just a truckload of parts, you know, but it was his leftover. And a few years ago, I bought out some friends of mine that I got into the parts business out here in this local area, and I got a couple of truck and trailer loads out of them. And I've actually, a number of times I have done just that, you know. But if it's too far away and they're really serious in the game, it's really hard to buy that stuff and make a profit on it after the logistics of getting it home.
Yeah.
You know,
Tom, I think I've asked you this just when I've been to the house and stuff. How do you figure out how to price it? Hey guys, are you thinking about swapping out your old motor for a more reliable LSLT based power plant? Behind each PSI harness, you get over 10 years of experience in the business, online tech support, phone support, and harnesses made in the U.S. That's psiconversion.com. Hey guys, UP Car Parts is having a Father's Day sale. It starts May 17th. You spend over $75 site-wide, you save 20%. You spend under $75, you save 15%. It starts May 17th, upcarparts.com. That's upcarparts.com. Save today.
Need C10 parts? Well, here at Pro, we actually have trucks. We build them, we drive them, and we deal with them every day. It's just part of who we are. We carry the best products for your truck project from the major name brands such as QA1, React, Painless, Dakota, Beltec, Borgeson, Bear, and even more. Give us a call or check us out on the web.
You've heard me talk about my gauges, Dakota Digital. I love them. Dakota Digital has the best gauges for our trucks. These kits are complete with sensors for any engine. They look just like the stock clusters, but have all the technology you'd expect from Dakota Digital. It's like a modern truck, but even better in a classic. Dakota Digital is absolutely the best in aftermarket gauges, so check them out at dakotadigital.com. dakotadigital.com. How do you figure out how to price it?
Man, it just supply and demand is a big thing, you know. It's just you know, everybody's looking for the same stuff, you know, perfect a certain color paint scheme or something on fenders and things like that. But a lot of there used to be a 67 to 70, there still is a 67 to 72 Chevy Trucks resource page, and that's where I learned where a lot of the pricing came from. Those guys on there were so many people on that forum that there's just a ton of information, and you know, but it's all based on where you live as well, because things that are worth a lot to us here in Arizona and California aren't worth, that much to people back east, like the soft goods and stuff like that they can find pretty easy. But just now it's the eBay and watching what eBay's doing, and then just what everybody else is advertising it for, Facebook, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to what I asked Tremayne, did you ever try to buy up? I know, for example, like how I think I probably met you, Tom, was via Gary and was it Robert? What was Gary's partner's name?
Gary at Southwest Trucks.
Yeah, so Gary down the road from you, and then Rick, right? You bought Rick's stuff. So Rick was right here on Lindsay Road. I would always go to see Rick, and then Rick probably sent me to Gary, and I forget who was with Gary. They're still around. They're right there on what the 101 on the 202 in Ellsworth. Isn't that Gary?
Well, there was Gary at
On
Southwest Trucks.
Well, at University right there when you'd get off the 101.
Don?
Yeah, is it Gary and Don then? It must be. Yeah. Either way, I'd buy hubcaps from those guys and two really, really good guys. And then you were like, but you were with them. And then I think you went over to Brian's yard after that.
Oh, me and Don used to sell a lot of parts. I worked with Don just because he had a nice yard there. And he was one of the first people that I met when I moved to Arizona. And he was he was into a little bit of everything. He was parting out a truck or buying and selling trucks, stuff like that. And he introduced me to a lot of stuff going on in Arizona, and he's a really good guy that super friendly, and just didn't have a bunch of secrets to keep or anything, So I worked with him for probably 4 or 5 years out of his yard. And then finally I had so much stuff going on my own that I just ended up getting my own thing in my own yard, and it blossomed into this wonderful thing.
Okay, this one's gonna hit home. Well, here, let me rewind because I don't want to forget. Did you know Dave from Jurassic Trucks when you first came out? Did you ever meet Dave?
Yeah, I met Dave. Yeah,
the professor?
I went over to his wrecking yard, and he had tons of stuff. Man, he had so much stuff over there. And then I heard he sold out, or I don't know. I think he scrapped a lot of his stuff, but
he did. Yeah. Did you, Tremayne, do you know Dave?
No, I don't think I knew him. I've heard of that Jurassic Trucks, but I don't think I ever knew him.
Yeah, he goes under Professor. He's out here in Arizona. He lives up almost carefree up in New River, but he is the master. He works at like a West Tech, which is like your high school body shop. He's got very good taste. He does extremely amazing work. But what happened was he had his own place. He kind of got out of teaching, and it was called Jurassic Trucks, and he was on the old forum. And he had a really, really good setup. Really, I mean, he had everything nice and organized and trucks. And I don't even remember how I first met him, but then he had his brother-in-law working for him. And unfortunately, his brother-in-law got into some stuff. And I think he was doing some backdoor deals, and Dave was losing money. And then he started going back to teaching. But definitely a pivotal part for me and my lineage of the community, because Dave was such a great guy, and kind of an introduction to when I got into it and I needed a part or something. I meet Dave and so on and so forth. But yeah, that guy had a lot of parts, and I think he ended up just losing, so many parts, and just one of those deals where you got to just, you're losing your lease and you're like, what do? I got to go back to, realjob.com. And it is pretty crazy to think. At one point I had at least one, I think I had a truck bed, a blazer top, and some stuff at his yard. And because I didn't have any place to store it, and he told me I could leave it there, and then he lost the yard, and I think it went in the trash. It literally got crushed or sold. And I was just like, dude, my blazer top's gone. And this is way before the social media. This is maybe forum time, late 2000 or early 2000s. Crazy shit, but yeah. It is, like you said, it was stuff that was around. And I think, you pay $200 to $400 for something back then that is now costing you a couple thousand, and, it's kind of crazy.
Yes.
So what do you think about this one? This Tom can attest to this, going back to even Tremayne's first interaction with me. I'll buy something from Tom and it'll sit there for 6 months because I'll buy it and I'll see it online and I'll just send him the money right away. I think I have a GMC like C50 grill that I bought and it sat for a while, maybe even a tailgate. Do you guys both have that where somebody will buy it now the way that we are from a social media perspective? And then in my defense, and there is no defense, I'll forget about it sometimes.
Yeah, of course. Um, those things sit around for a while. I've got a few things sitting on the shelf right now. Somebody bought it. And to be honest, I don't remember who even bought it now, but I took it, wrapped it up, threw it on the shelf. And a dude bought it off Instagram, and I'm pretty sure one of these days is going to hit me up and say, "Hey, I bought those tail light lenses and bezels. I need to get those picked up." And it's been probably a year now, but yeah, it happens quite a bit.
Yes.
It's so easy to click it and send you the money and then forget. It's almost like, hey, you get 2 reminders in 6 months, and after that, I gotta resell. It's gonna, even Tom is, the audience will love this. Is Tom's like, hey, your shipping, your storage is getting to be more than what you paid for the. So I usually try to bribe him with some beers or some T-shirts or something. But yeah, I've definitely done that, and I have done that at swap meets too, where you're in a, you're going so fast, and you're like, I gotta buy this, I want to, I want to buy this. So yeah, I'm sure Tremayne, you probably had some of those experiences as well.
Yes. One that stands out, a guy came by my spot at Pomona. I'd never met him before. He bought a bunch of Suburban stuff, and it was some really hard to find Suburban stuff. He pays for it. He says, "Can I leave it here and I'll be back at the end of the day?" I said, "Yes. I'm out of here at 2:00 or whatever." I hand him my card. I said, if you can't make it by then, call me. I can wait for you, whatever. Just, I'm not gonna keep your stuff or whatever, however it goes, So he never came back, never called me, never came back. I put his stuff in the pile. I took it home. I put it in the corner of the shed. Because the way I look at it at that point is that's his stuff. He bought it and paid for it. It's not my parts now, just because I have them in my possession. So I took him to the next Pomona. He didn't show up. I took him back home, put him in the shed, and I'm like, okay, I'm not taking those to Pomona anymore. They take up room. Probably 6 months later, my phone rings. This guy's all, "Hey, man, I don't know if you remember me, but I bought some stuff at Pomona, blah, blah, blah." Never came back. He goes, "I just found your card under the back seat of my truck." The whole story. I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'm not even calling about the parts because I know I forfeited them a long time ago." I said, "No, I have all your parts. They're in my shed at home right here." And he's like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I saved them, dude. Those are your parts. You paid for them, And he goes, "Well, that's not why I'm calling you. I'm calling you because my truck's loaded with a bunch of parts and I want to sell them to you cheap. Are you home?" I said, "Yeah." So he comes over. I got all his stuff, and I look at his stuff and I go, "What do you want for it?" And he goes, "I'm blown away that you kept all my parts for 6 months or more." And I said, "Yeah, dude, you bought it. I know stuff happens. You lost the card, whatever. Even if you're lying to me about that, whatever, life happens." I said, "Here, take your stuff. No big deal." He goes, "You can have all this," and gave me a truckload of parts in exchange, But then that's not the only. I've had people buy stuff and never, ever, ever come back for it,
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. We're all moving so fast, it's like, gotta buy it. I don't want to lose it. And then swap meets are tough because especially Pomona, there's so much going on, and you're like, where did I spend? You almost have to have like a receipt and be like, "Oh yeah, I gave Tremayne $100. Oh yeah, I gave Tom this money, and oh yeah, I gave this guy that money." And you're like, "Oh yeah," even the one that Dino just had, it wasn't even that big, and you're just running as fast as you can go, trying to get all the primo shit.
Yes.
Yep.
Buy a part and you come back a couple hours later to pay the balance or to pick it up because you wanted to bring a truck that's big, whatever the case. You buy a part, you come back and the guy's wife or kid or friend is there helping. They're like, he didn't say anything to me. And you're like, "No, those are and I'm not going to get upset, but I'm like, well, where are they at? When are they going to come back? I want to get my parts." And, and I don't get upset. I understand that if they gave away their part to everybody that walked by and said, "Oh, I bought that from him," but yes, it's the swap meets are the worst because it's so fast paced, and some swap meets you're just buying something every 10 minutes and you can't remember where it all was and what exactly you bought and didn't buy. And
yeah, Do you ever have a rule that you guys try to live by? And I mean this, I really do mean this like sincerely. You guys are two of the best guys I know. You care. It's funny to me because I have kind of a rule that I do try to live by is, am I taken from the community or am I given to the community? And it's like, you guys aren't just slinging parts. You really care. And you're like, hey, I know you were looking for this. Hey, I know you're looking for this. But do you ever get to where you're like, kind of pissed off because you're like, dude, you either got to buy it or not, because if you don't buy it or you say you want it and then you don't come back, I got to sell my shit. And you get into where people are so undecisive and you're like, dude, either buy it or don't, because I got other guys that want to buy it.
Yes, I have a rule. Now, there are a few people who I will make an exception to, but for the most part, until the money is put down, a deposit is put down, until the money's exchanged, it's up for sale. And I don't mean like if Ronnie, if you were to call me this afternoon and be like, hey, dude, I want to buy that hubcap, I can send you the money PayPal tomorrow. Okay, I'm not going to sell it out for money before tomorrow. Not going to do that. But when Wednesday comes around and Ronnie sent me the money for the hubcap and some dude shows up with $2, he's going to get the hubcap,
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the swap meets, it's even more so. I get people all the time like, hey, I'll come back and buy that. And I'm like, well, it's for sale until you give me some money. Leave me a deposit, enough that I at least makes it worth my while. Don't leave me a dollar deposit. But until the money is exchanged hands, that part is still for sale to the first person that steps up with cash in hand. And I'll tell you how swap meets is a lot of times you see somebody looking at something, I want to buy it. This guy's got it in his hand. I give him the respect, but I will, after a short period of time of him hawing around, I'll look at the seller and be like, hey, as soon as he passes, I'm giving you your asking price. And guy he either has to spit out some money or get out of the way, because then the seller is looking at me like, okay, this guy just said he's going to give me $175. So no, I'm not taking your $125 low ball offer, And same at the swap meet. It's like, yes, if you have it in your hand and you're contemplating, you get first shot. But as soon as you put it down or say no, this guy over here gets to buy it. And no matter how bad you want it, how close the ATM is, whatever, give me a deposit, leave me your hat, your sunglasses. I've had people do that. They didn't have any cash at the swap meet. They spent it all. They're like, dude, can I leave you my, my left shoe, whatever it is? It's like, yeah, something tells me coming back. But once you walk away, you've walked away from that.
Yeah, good. Tom, how about you?
Yep, the swap meet is full of be-backs.
Yeah, I'll be back.
I'll be back. I'll be back for that. Yep.
I'll be back.
We call them be-back.
Instead of greenbacks, I'll be backs. You're like, when you come back, bring a greenback with your be-back.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, that's a good. I'll be back. That's so good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I had an interesting one at Dino's. Before I go to the interesting situation I had at Dino's, do you guys try to get? I know at Pomona you can start early because you can get there so early. Do you guys ever get frustrated where you want to walk around and try to get a quick pick of, because there's parts there that you guys. I know Tremayne's done this where he'll buy shit and then he'll put it in his spot and sell it. Do you have a balance there where you can run around real quick and I'll be back on, or have an assistant, because you're like, I want to get around to find some deals myself.
Oh man, that's not really ethical to run around and get all the good deals, is it?
If you got to do it, hey, it's your job to make money. It's a different
that's
deal.
The reason to go.
Yeah, oh, totally. Yeah. There should be that'd be kind of cool. It's like, and I do think that this is how things happen in Pomona, where guys will get vendor spots so they can be there in the middle of the night. And I mean, Tremayne's seen it where guys are sitting there at 2-3 in the morning with their flashlights going around. And there should almost be like a 2-hour window so pickers can pick.
Yes. But that's what vendor setup day is. Unfortunately, a lot of people do show up middle of the night Saturday while I have to get a little bit of sleep, or early Sunday morning. And it's really hard for me to leave my spot Sunday, even though I have my trusty sidekick, Robert, there helping me. It's still really hard for me to leave my spot at all Sunday morning. So that's why I hit it hard on Saturday. on vendor setup day, I hit it hard. In Long Beach, I go to Long Beach swap meet, even if I'm not a vendor. I go in on a vendor pass, and I'm there, an hour before, or 2 hours, whatever it is, before they let the public in. And the same thing, I'm trying to go around and get all the early bird deals. And a lot of people say that's not fair. Well, anybody can buy a vendor pass, any swap meet.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
if you want to spend the money, you can buy a vendor pass and be there early. Pomona's great with the car corral, because if you drive in a pre-1984 vehicle, $30 gets you and a passenger in with a car corral pass. You can come and go as many times as you want. You can come back Sunday, and that's the way to go for Saturday, to get in to Pomona Saturday shopping. And I'm not afraid to say that to the public, because too many people just don't want to do that. They want to go to Pomona when everybody's there, every vendor's there, and a lot of people can't do it both days. So.
Yeah, and for the audience, the Pomona swap meet is on Sunday, but the vendors are loading everything in on Saturday. And when I say Sunday, I feel like it's at 4 a.m. Sunday. I could be off, but it's so damn early. So Saturday is almost like kind of the best time, where you're pre-partying and hanging out, and vendors are getting set up. But all vendors will not be there, and some vendors do come in at 4 a.m. on Sunday. So you do, from the perspective of, if you think you're going to be there Saturday night, whether it's in the car corral or the vendor spot, you'll find out that only half the vendors are there, as the other vendors are starting to come in.
Yeah. And
the
thing cracks me up. I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't want to be here Saturday and deal with lowballers like you." And that's exactly how they put it. And the surprising thing, yes, I want to buy stuff cheap. I am not a lowballer. I do have standards of the lowest price I will offer, and percentage wise, and it's the way I want to be treated. And quite often I see these people, other sellers that aren't truck people, but they're selling truck parts. And I walk up and I'm like, "Hey, what are you getting on the bumper?" And they tell me a price, and I just, boom, you know what? This guy's a vendor. I want him to bring me truck parts and know that I'm a good buyer. And I just pay their price, because they're asking too little anyways. And I'd rather keep that person in my back pocket than lowball them one time. The old saying about fleecing a sheep. You can make butters all year, or you have one lamb dinner. Make your decision. But that's what they don't understand, is that not all of us vendors are lowballers. Quite often, again, I pay full asking price from a lot of people at the swap meets, because they don't know what the parts are worth. And I know I could probably cut them in half and lowball them, but then the next swap meet, they're going to be like, "I'm not selling that guy anything."
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. What's something that you've dealt with like that, Tom?
It's a lot of the same exact stuff. I mean, I used to go to Pomona, and that was fun. I mean, if you could get in there the day before, back when I was trying to go, you couldn't get. It was hard to get a spot. You had to wait in line for, man, it seemed like it was like 6 hours to get a damn spot.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Man, I cannot take this. This is the worst part of it." But then, boom, once you finally get in, and it's 2 p.m. on Saturday or whatever,
yeah,
then you're running free, But it is it is true. You want to find a Ford guy selling Chevy parts, because he's going to let them things go cheap, And if they're the right price, I'm going to pay it. I'm not going to try to dip any lower than they're already at, But it's the swap meets are fun to me.
Yeah.
And like San Diego, I know Tremayne, I used to see him at San Diego all the time, and that was a great swap meet.
yes,
And it's unfortunate it's not around anymore, but the big three. But we'd get there the day before, just to party and hang out and walk around and see what everybody had, because you could kind of relax and do it. And then when the actual swap meet started, boom, you're working, and there's no more messing around,
Yeah. Yes.
What's your favorite, if you had a top three that you either like from a participant or as a spectator, or obviously from the vending perspective, what's your guys' top three swap meets that you go to, and what's a swap meet that you would really love to go to someday?
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, Well, like I said, I used to love the San Diego swap meet. Anymore, there's not a whole lot of swap meets going on here in Arizona. There's the Glendale monthly swap meet, which was yesterday, which I went there just to shop around, see what I could find, and that's pretty decent for being a monthly swap. And I don't know. I haven't all the swap meets back in Nebraska were always good. There was a Lincoln swap meet, and every once in a while I get back there to go to that or Fremont, and I wouldn't mind heading out to the East Coast. I know there's a few big swaps out there, but it's just the logistics of it, driving all that way and figuring out how to get your parts home once you get there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tremayne, what's your go-tos?
So my favorite swap meet was the Big Three by far. 45 minutes from my house. So what's not to like about that? A huge 2-day, with Friday being the vendor setup day. A huge 2-day swap meet that you could barely walk the whole thing in one day. So obviously the Big Three was my favorite, and that was, there was nothing like the Big Three. Pomona and I have a love-hate relationship nowadays because Pomona is dying a slow, miserable death, unfortunately. But I still love Pomona. I live for Pomona swap meets. Portland is one. I've been to Portland swap meet once. That was a great swap meet. I wasn't vending. I was just up there buying. And that's one I want to get back up to again. My current favorite swap meet, though, is Turlock. A year after the Big Three ended, I went to Turlock for the first time, and it's very much like the Big Three. Friday's vendor setup day, although they don't let you in till like 2, and at the Big Three they let you in at 7 in the morning on Friday. So we'd be down there at 5 in line, 5 Friday morning buying stuff in line. But Turlock, again, it's a 2-day swap meet. Vendor setup day Friday, Saturday the big swap meet day, and then Sunday for all the people that don't know that you got to be there at the first day of the swap meet. And that's when you buy everybody's leftover junk on Sunday. So currently Turlock, the big Turlock in January is my favorite swap meet. Pate, Texas, a Pate swap meet in Texas is one that's on my list. I want to go. Iola in Wisconsin is on my radar. And then, of course, Carlisle and Hershey back on the East Coast are two that those are lifelong bucket list. And I want to go to Carlisle as a seller. And I know I've talked to other guys that do it. Generally, almost all their parts are pre-sold before they get there, but you go out there with a load of truck parts and sheet metal, you sell it all for, a premium. And then you shop around, buy the soft stuff, whatever you can out there, and travel back through the Midwest buying antiques on the way home and sell them out here on the West Coast where people go nuts for them. That's kind of one of my dreams right there, is to do just that. But in terms of the 3 favorite, I would say Turlock, Pomona, and I really don't know. Long Beach is all right, but I don't do well at Long Beach for some reason these days. So I guess I only have 2 favorites right now. Yeah.
And then Turlock, you said January is the big one, but you guys were just there this past weekend as well, correct?
Yes. So there's the Turlock, the big Turlock January meet, which is put on by the Model A Club of America.
Classic Performance Products, CPP back. Joe, let's talk X10 spindles. Go.
One of our most popular parts through the years has been our 2.5-inch drop modular spindles. Really popular part. Well, we've kind of taken that to the next step. We've emulated late model Corvette, Silverado, Chevy technology into our new X10 drop spindles. They use a steel hub, sealed bearing hub, really strong piece. It's oversized bearings, definitely great for a guy using big brakes, big wheels, which I'm sure all your guys are.
You need a new spindle anyways. You're going to lower your truck. You're running a bigger wheel, a bigger brake. CPP's got it for you with their new X10 spindle. Joe, as always, thank you. CPP, classicperform.com. It's classicperform.com. Sniper 2. Are you ready to switch out that old carb for a modern EFI system? Well, Holley has a solution for you. The all-new Sniper 2. This new system was redesigned from the ground up. Available in tumbled polished or black powder coat, and there's 3 available tuning interfaces. a classic 3.5 handheld, a 5-inch mountable, which includes a GPS speedo or a Bluetooth module so you can use your smartphone. Another big bonus is the Sniper 2 has a built-in transmission control module. So if you're looking to upgrade to a 4-speed overdrive 4L60, 4L80, you now can with ease. Holley.com to get started today, Holley.com. Marquet has been in business for over 40 years. Marquet has grown to be one of the country's premier truck parts manufacturers. They have made their original parts from the original trucks. All parts are manufactured in-house in Oklahoma City, USA. They offer quality parts built by Americans for old American-made trucks. So when you're looking for body moldings, bed strips, bed wood, and so much more, think Marquet. That's mar-k.com.
The big Turlock January meet, which is put on by the Model A Club of America, and it's at the Stanislaus County Fairgrounds. And so then there's the spring fall Turlock, which are two separate entities from the big Turlock in January. Same location, two different entities putting on a swap meet at the same place. So that's the difference there is they do the spring, which we just had, which is the Palooza, known as the Palooza, and then they do the fall, which I went there one time, and let me tell you, the Central Valley of California in September is not for me. That heat, it's even a different heat than Arizona. I don't like the heat at all. But that was just a little much for me, and I didn't do well enough at the fall swap meet to make me want to go back. And driving through the Central Valley in 114 degrees wasn't very fun either, because the AC kind of started not working so well in the truck I was in.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it is cool that like you said, some are dying and there's still some that are alive, and I do see that it's going to end up evolving, right? I saw a post the other day that said, we might have one more generation of these classics where, maybe the 20 to 25-year-old kids, they still like old stuff, but they have a new generation. So hopefully, it's been alluded to many a time that the 67 to 72 or the C10 is kind of like the old school Camaro or the old school 32 Ford and so on and so forth. So, you guys have seen a massive evolution in 20 years from the parts, what's popular, what's hot, what's not, and something that you used to sell, you couldn't keep it on the shelf. And now you're like, shit, I got a ton of these, and now everybody wants, square body trim, or they want this, and you're trying to keep up with what to sell and when to sell it. So it's definitely, it's a science, if you will.
Yes. And, it's so true of the generational thing and the vehicles that come in and out of style or go out. And I read an article many years ago in like a Road and Track or Car and Driver, one of those little higher end car magazines, and it was talking about the brass era cars from the teens and 20s, and how in the 50s a brass era car was in the tens of thousands of dollars, $50,000 for a really high end brass era car in the 50s was what they were worth and what their value was. Well, you look at a brass era car today, and that same car sells for $10,000. And it doesn't sell, and nobody wants it, So that is going to happen to every vehicle. You look at the 57 Chevy, the iconic 57 Chevy. They are probably less popular today than ever. Again, the 56 Ford F100. To me, the 56 Ford is the most iconic pickup truck ever built. When I was a kid growing up, that was the hot rod truck of hot rod trucks. If you had a hot rod truck and it was a 56 Ford F100, you were, that was it. And now, if you don't have gray hair, you don't even know what a 56 Ford F100 is, much less do you care anything about it, and that's going to happen. It's going to, I honestly thought the 67 to 72 craze would have died out years ago, but instead it just brought the 60 to 66 in and the square bodies into its popularity, and they're as popular as they've ever been today as ever. But the styles have changed, and like you said, the things that used to sell like hotcakes now sit on the shelf a lot of it is some of the rarer options, because nowadays these kids get a 67 to 72 and they don't care that it's a Cheyenne super short bed big block with buckets and console and an AM FM. They want a Bluetooth, they want a Snowden, they want a LS, and they want to shave it, and they're going to bag it. And I look at that and I'm like, dude, that was a loaded big block bucket seat, tilt, tack, AM FM, shoulder belt, speed warning, Cheyenne short bed. And they're like, yeah, I don't care. What does that mean? They don't know what any of that means. They're like, somebody put these stupid belts in the pillar and they put this dumb AM FM out of a Pontiac in it, you know, and they put a van tilt in it, and, you know, and they put the seats are out of a Blazer. They don't even belong in a pickup. And I'm like, oh yeah. Okay. Just send all that stuff my way. I'll take it.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's funny because I have a 72 Cheyenne that, you know, I was chasing down an AM FM. I have a tilt or a tack, I should say, and a tilt. And I don't really even care about the tack anymore, because I'd probably rather have the original or have like a Dakota that looks like it. But then I feel like we evolved into where having a radio delete is cooler, because it's a delete, and then your cowl doesn't have an antenna in it anymore, so you don't have to deal with the antenna because of the cowl, and so you're like, dude, this is the delete, so there's you don't you
want a stripper.
Yeah, well, one thing you don't have to worry about with the delete is there's no holes. There's no hole in the cowl for the antenna. There's no holes in the door because the guy didn't have speakers in it, and so you're like, this is cherry, because there's nothing in it, and it's just crazy how I always tell guys the short bed 67 to 72s, you know, they're kind of like the hot chick in high school, right? Everybody kind of ran through her. And so that's why you want to find the old long bed. That's the girl next door that nobody wanted. And it's on, you know, maybe the second or third owner. Whereas you find a hot rod short bed that, like Tremayne was alluding to, a 72 Cheyenne Super, bucket seats, AM, FM, all the bells and whistles. Well, that thing probably ran through a few different owners over time, and they're just a little bit rode hard and put away wet, versus you find these third owner grandpa trucks or second owner grandpa trucks, and you're like, holy shit, all the wire is where it's need to be. It hasn't been JC Whitney'd out. And so it's funny to see that evolution.
Yep.
Yes, it is.
So when I look at it, and I do think of you both as 67 to 72 guys, I think that's the bloodstream for both of you. But I feel like, would you say that, you know, 10, 15 years ago, the 60 to 66 got a little more popular? Has that died off? Tremayne, you kind of alluded to the 67 to 72, still popular, maybe just popular in a different style than it was at one point. And then, holy shit, the square bodies. You know, I just did a post prior to us going on live here. And there's, you know, I did it based on 1976. And in 76 through 79, I would say that GM had about the most options you could get, from a Blazer, a Suburban, a four-wheel drive, a dually, a crew cab, a two-wheel drive blade. I mean, there's so many different variations that when you went to the car lot or the truck lot, if you will, you had a lot of options in those, you know, mid to late 70s. So when you look at what are you selling the most of, what still blows your mind, what's something that you just you couldn't keep on the shelves, and now you're like, shit, I can't give them away? Or kind of walk us through some of those stories.
You know, I was thinking of that. One thing that I'll say that sells now that didn't was smalls. But it's also kind of tapering off because a lot of people don't care so much about the originals. There's still a lot of guys that want original parts. But what's still hotter than ever.
What do you mean smalls? What do you mean smalls?
Small parts, the small common stuff, nothing that is specific to a model of truck, but just the small common, something that every truck had.
Ashtray, something.
Yes.
Okay.
Ashtray,
glove box doors.
You know, things of that nature, the smalls, which again, I throw all that stuff away. I never kept any of that stuff. And now a lot of that stuff's getting harder to find. Ashtrays, glove box doors, door lock sets, things like that. You know, I would say door latches, but door latches are almost always worn out, so they're kind of a hard item to sell. But like stock mirrors, and they're kind of, they seem to have tapered off, but the 67 to 70, what I call farm mirrors, the original stock little, long arm 3-screw mirrors, those for years nobody wanted those things at all. You throw them away. Nobody ever bought one of those. And then for probably a good 5 or 6 year period, I could not keep even a single arm, no matter how many paint jobs it had on it, around. They were a hot item, and it's kind of tapering off a little bit, I think, because I have like 5 pairs of them now, original paint ones, even at that. And it's just funny how some of these things come and go. The rare options are still hot, but I think the circle for those is shrinking. AM/FMs, tilts, because there's so many aftermarket tilts, but tilt columns still are bringing a premium. Shoulder belts, one of the rarest, probably the rarest of all options for 67 to 72. But the circle's shrinking for a lot of those parts, because it's the older guys that want those parts, and the young kids don't care at all about options, although they are still, an AM/FM, a good AM/FM, still bringing a premium. Tack dashes are still bringing a premium, but to a whole different market, and not as many people, it seems like, want them, because now everybody, if you got an LS, you need a Dakota Digital, and on with that. I mean, I know there are ways to adapt it, and I hear about it all the time, but basically anybody doing an LS swap is going to go Dakota Digital. Gauge clusters, for one, gauge clusters in general, just a regular standard 7-hole gauge cluster. I can't sell one of those things to save my life anymore, unless it's just extremely nice and dirt cheap. Where my guy that used to rebuild clusters, he gave me $40 for every cluster I could come up with. And at one time, he bought like $1,200 worth of clusters from me at once, because I had a stack of them when I bought out a guy that was parting out trucks. So there's one right there, is stock, non-tack, non-vacuum, non-air pressure gauge clusters. They are virtually worth almost nothing at this point in the game right now. I probably have 20 of them, and I'm most likely going to throw them away.
Yeah. Remember when you couldn't get a Chevrolet 69 to 70 grill, and then LMC came out with that. And I think I remember talking to you about either those or the GMC, Tremayne, about and then even the GMC grills. Cause finally, once LMC, or, at least I remember LMC first, and then I'm sure everybody else got a hold of them, brothers and whatnot. But yeah, that's gotta be a little bit where you're sitting on gold. One day you're sitting on gold, and 2 weeks later,
you got a pile of scrap metal. And that was me with a GMC grill. And this goes way, way back. I had an extremely nice, this would have been early 2000s, late, maybe even 99. I had this super, super nice GMC grill. A guy called me from Hawaii, needed that grill. He was doing a full-blown, beautiful restoration on a GMC, and he wanted the nicest grill he could find. It was a 71, 72, which for some reason are kind of harder to find. So I sold this, and this was back then. I sold it for like $650, and he paid whatever ridiculous amount it was to get it shipped over to Hawaii. And then like 2 months later, I parted out another nice GMC. I had another grill, and I had a local guy, same thing, wanted one, and I got like $700. And, and again, you got to remember, this was 25 years ago, $700. And, so I decided I was going to sit on all of the nice GMC grills I could find until I could find the right buyer that was willing to pay up on them. So I probably had 6 or 7 really, really nice GMC grills stashed away, and then I'd sell the dinged up ones for whatever I could get at the swap meet. But I had I'm thinking, okay, I got thousands of dollars worth of GMC grills sitting here stacked up. When the right buyer comes along, I'm going to hit a home run. And boom, they started repopping those GMC grills. I sold every one of those for less than $200 a piece, and it took me years to get rid of them. And if I would have sold them at the time, I could have got $400 or $500 for them. So yeah. Now, as far as the Chevy grills, the aftermarket grills for Chevrolets has not hurt the value of an original grill, and part of that is because you don't need to chrome plate an original grill. You can strip it, polish it, and keep it polished or clear coat it. But a GMC grill, you have to chrome it. And nowadays it costs, $1,500 and up to chrome a GMC grill. So you look at a $300, $400 from LMC, or pay $500 for one that needs a $1,500 worth of chrome plate. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah. Tom, what do you got that you're blown away that you used to sling and now it isn't moving, or vice versa, that, the square bodies, the dashes, the consoles, the, different things that you've seen over the course of your time?
I saw a lot of wheels, a lot of the steel wheels that I used to just dump. Those things would go away. You just get rid of them as fast as you could. And now there's calls every 5 times a week looking for 5-lug, 6-lug, 4-nub wheels that take the hubcaps. Everybody wants them. I mean, I still can't get enough of those things. But seems like a lot of the hard parts, like the spindles, and a lot of people would do the 70, 71 and 72 factory spindles. Yeah, they don't even care about that stuff anymore. If anybody buys any spindles, they're always buying drop spindles. So factory disc brake setups seem like they're worthless. I don't know. I got pallets and pallets of stuff back there that doesn't sell very fast, but I have a hard time letting it go. But every once in a while we clean house and get rid of some stuff. But things like bench seats that used to kind of get tossed out, those sell about as fast as I get them if they're decent anymore. I think a lot of people back in the day took them out to throw in whatever bucket seat they could find into their truck, and now they want to go back to something that's pretty stock looking.
Yeah, it's funny when you think about, like, just, I'm a little bit, I think Tom and I are about the same age, but when you think about the like, you look at the 80s to the 90s, and like you said, everybody would put OBS seats in them, right? And then you have you had the first gen of OBS seats that would go in the 67 to 72s. Then you had the second gen OBS seats, the 95 and newer, the cloth with the fold down. You were getting the 40-20-40, and you could fold that down. And you're like, oh, I have a 60 or 72 K20 that's got a 95 in it. I love it, right? And then you think about the grills. Everybody would throw the grill out, right? Or put it in their garage, hopefully, their insert, and then they wanted a tubular grill. They got rid of I remember talking to Steve from Brothers. I'm like, it's funny how they sell a lot of parts at the time. This is years ago, but you're undoing what people would do, from cutting the dash to put the single din pull out stereo in, your patch panels for your doors because somebody put speakers in there, and now nobody wants the speakers in the door. Nobody wants a double din. You want your dash complete because you either want Bluetooth and you want that factory look, and you don't want that hole cut. I think square body bezels alone, a guy could just print money if they, you're looking for an OG square body bezel, you're looking for a wood grain that's perfect. And those are still really, really popular, and steering wheels, because they've all been melted out. But how much we do of undoing, like you said, the bucket seats, the wheels, the stuff that everybody got rid of. And now you're like, well, now everybody wants that retro stockish style, and a 5-lug Steely with caps. Of course, they're going to lower it and give it a little bit of a stance, or they're going to raise it up. But it's funny to think of all the things that everybody modified and now wants back to how it used to be.
Yep.
Yes.
All the accessorizing, all the JC Whitney stuff.
Yeah. Mud flaps and stereos and Craco radios and the pull outs, and yeah, it is a funny cycle just in our little world, right? I mean, I think all trucks and Blazers and SUVs, Suburbans, whatever, but yeah, even the seats, right? Oh, the seats wore out on the old truck. All right, let's just get a pull out from I remember there used to be a place here in Phoenix. It was like pick apart truck and pull or something off 32nd and over there by Bourbon Street, strip bar. But it was they had all the OBS seats, and you just go in there and buy an OBS seat, throw it in your truck.
Yep.
Yeah. pretty funny to think. What about square body stuff? What are you guys seeing that's real popular or hard to come by, or what do you guys see just C10 wise, truck wise, that do you come across gold and do you hold on to it, or do you just move it because you don't want to lose out on the money?
Move it. I want to move this stuff.
Yeah.
I want to sell
I
it.
agree.
Unless it's something I want to keep, which is very rare. Usually if I want to keep something, I put it on my truck immediately. But I just want to sell this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not
move it
hoarding.
out.
I've learned my lesson more than just with the GMC grills about hoarding, and either it falls out of popularity or it gets repopped and you're done. You know.
In the OBS world, we see a lot of scammers. We see a lot of fake accounts. There was a guy recently that I blew up on social media, which isn't something I want to do, but I had reached out to him about some parts. He said he was in Yuma, and for people that aren't Tom and Tremayne and Ronnie, Yuma is a little armpit, close to Mexico, not too far from San Diego, and a couple 3-4 hours from Phoenix. So he says, "Oh, I'm in Yuma." And I said, "Okay," I'm talking to him. And then I start seeing, "Oh, no, I'm in Texas." And so then I kind of started seeing that he was posting other people's parts. And I'm like, hold on, that part, that cab was this guy's. And you start to put it all together. And are you seeing a lot of scammers? I just don't think it's as bad as it is in the OBS world, but are you seeing scammers?
Yes.
Facebook is just full of scams. I think every other ad on Facebook is a scam.
Yes, and every Facebook business account that posts on the truck groups is a scam. And sometimes they change one word of a name or whatever, and they show pictures of inventory. Like I found one that was Vintage Parts of America. They were using all of Vintage Parts of America's, or is it Arizona? Vintage Parts Arizona?
Yeah, so the old SoCal.
I just saw that too.
Yeah. So there's a Facebook page that's using all of their pictures and their sign, but they've got a different phone number and they don't show the whole sign because they changed one word. It's like Arizona Vintage Parts or something like that instead of Vintage Parts Arizona. However it was. I even found, and I find my pictures all the time on the scammer groups, but I found an account. It was Dave's Old School Truck Parts, and his head picture was my spot at Pomona with my banner, Tremayne's Trucks banner. He had a post that he stole from me. Get your stickers and cards from me at the next Pomona swap meet. Dave's Old School Truck Parts, and it's my Tremayne's Truck stickers. And I'm like, who in their right mind would see these pictures and then contact Dave's Truck Parts and not be suspicious that they're not Tremayne's trucks? But people send them money every single day, all day long. People send them money, Zelle, friends and family. But yes, it's running rampant all over Facebook. And I just got another 2 motorcycle guy recently on Instagram and a OBS parts guy with square body and OBS parts that were scammers using stolen pictures. And that's why I've started watermarking my pictures.
Sure.
For that reason. And I found scammers with their own watermarks on stolen pictures. So just because they have a watermark doesn't mean they're legit. But I do it. So
it's Tremayne's card, but it has Dave's Truck Parts watermark.
yeah, exactly.
So what do you think about that? Do you think social media is helping your business, or is it a pain in the ass, or does it even out? Because I feel like you guys are both established parts people in the community, and I would think that it would hopefully be better that you have social media and because you have such a reach.
Yes. But one thing that happens with the scammers is it makes people leery of buying anything from anybody online at all, unless it's, Jags or Summit or LMC or Classic Industries, something like that. And I get it all the time. I get all the time. I see these guys on Facebook that are saying, I got scammed or my buddy got scammed. I'll never, ever buy anything from anybody online. And it's like, God, man, I just lost a potential customer right there because this guy will never, ever send me money, even though my account only accepts goods and services. A lot of people don't understand what that means, you know? So it just turns them off completely from buying anything unless they're at a swap meet or it's an in-person sale or an established large corporation business, you know? So the social media, yes, I sell a lot of parts due to social media for sure. But then there's that other side where the scammers have hurt people like us, the small guys. I'm sure, you know, we may not know it and see it, but you know, there's that guy that would have bought this grill from me and had me ship it to him, but now he's not going to buy anything from anybody on Facebook ever, you know?
Yep.
What's the best way to combat that? Obviously, I hope that all of our audience and you guys can rebroadcast this and say, you know, because I try to vet people all the time. I would love to just go around and say, hey, this is C10 Talk approved. This is no bullshit. This is, you know, like I'll do that. I'll say to guys like, because I think they're scamming, I'll be like, hey, let's put you on the pod, and then they don't respond, you know, because they're fake. They're fake guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we've got to let people know that, you know, that Tremayne and Truckin' Crazy are legit. And the problem is that you end up having fake Tremayne and Truckin' Crazy, you know, and you're like, holy, I mean, I see people that have C10 Talk and OBS Talk, and you're like,
yeah,
how is this even like, you know, I think the community does a good job. I'm not as big on Facebook, but I do think the community does an okay job of policing, because, you know, if we see a Tremayne, and I've seen you post this stuff and say, hey, this isn't me, but I think that the community probably does a pretty good job of saying, hey, Tremayne, hey, Tom, this isn't you, correct? Like, let's shut this account down. Let's get these guys out. And, you know, it is unfortunate, but I hope that by you posting and staying, you know, up to speed on everything that goes on, that people are realizing, hey, these two aren't fake account. These are real guys slinging real parts.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's mostly, like I said, mostly what it is the people that get burned, and then they will never, no matter what, no matter who speaks for you, no matter what, they're never, ever sending money electronically to anybody again. And I understand that some of these guys are getting burned for thousands of dollars, not hundreds or tens, but thousands. And I could see where that would skew you. And with social media as big as it is, and like you look at a Facebook group that has, you know, 70,000 members on a Facebook truck group. Well, no matter, you could post 20 times a day, every day for years, and there's still going to be a number of people who won't see that post and will send money to the scammer that you've been diligently exposing. That, or they just don't want to believe. They want to believe they're actually going to get that slosh tubs with the Paul Gomez interior on it for $500. That slosh tubs buddy bucket with Paul Gomez interior. They think they're going to get it shipped to their door for $500 from some guy who's getting a divorce and is going broke. And it's like, dude, it costs more than that to ship the seat. Use your brain, you know?
Yeah. If it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true.
Yeah,
exactly.
It just blows my mind how many people send those scammers money for a seat, a $3,000 seat for $500 shipped, and they send them $500. Then their scam is, then they go after them and be like, we need another $300. So now they've sent them 800. Well, now you're 800 invested. So when they ask for another 200, you're like, well, geez, I don't want to lose my $800. I'm going to send them another 2. And I can't understand that, because I just can't understand it, but that's what happens. And then after that, that guy is never, ever, ever sending anybody money ever again.
So let's walk through that. What is the best way to buy a part, whether it's through Facebook, whether it's through Tremayne, whether it's through Truckin' Crazy? What's the best way to, you know, without a lot of trust? We don't have, it'd be great if we had part escrow where, you know, they could send the money to Ronnie sends the money to Tremayne. Once the part exchanges, what is the best way for the people to consider, you know, buying a part? Do they, because I get people that ask me all the time, they're like, well, how do you go about even buying a truck? How do you do that? Okay, well, first of all, let's vet the system. Let's call around. Let's see what the guy's doing. But let's say that they trust that person, whether, let's just say it's you, Tremayne. What's the best way? Send you the money, send all the money, and then you're going to ship it. You're going to get the address. How does that foolproof or the best we can?
Well, for me, I will not send anyone money, friends and family. I only pay PayPal goods and services. That's it. That is
because of the protection.
Because of the buyer's protection. If I pay, and this goes for anybody, if you send money, goods and services through PayPal, at any point, you can dispute that and say and request a money return, and you will immediately have that money back in your account, and the seller will not have that money. You can, and I shouldn't say this, but it's a well-known scam, and I actually know somebody that I've just found out is guilty of this, doing this for years. Anybody knows, he's not in the truck community. Anyways, you could buy a part from me, send me goods and services money. I send you my tax cluster, and you get it, and you contact PayPal, and you're like, hey, I want a money request back. And you don't even have to give a reason. PayPal immediately takes that money out of my account, puts it back in your account. You now have the tax dash and your money back. I can fight it, but the chance of me getting my money back from you is slim to none. And I've never had that scenario happen, but I've had people that got parts that got damaged in transit. And my go-to with parts that get damaged in transit, I offer that customer a full 100% refund. If the part's salvageable, I want it back. If it's not, keep it, and I just ate it, and I'll go after the shipping service. But again, PayPal goods and services is the only method I will use to send money. And I've had what I thought was probably a legitimate seller telling me, no, I'm not taking goods and services because then I got to eat the 3%. And I tell them, I'll take the 3%. And they're like, well, then I got to claim it on my whatever. And quite possibly they're a legit seller, but I'm like, I only send money as goods and services, and I do not make exceptions to that. And therefore, I have never once been scammed. That's my advice to anybody buying parts on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Doesn't matter if it's in a business, because they're probably a scammer. Doesn't matter. And my business Facebook, or my business PayPal, only accepts payment as goods and services because it is a business account. So only send money using, or, your bank card, depending on your bank. I just talked to a guy who got scammed, but he sent his money with buyer's protection using his bank card, and he's getting his money back. So depending on your own personal, but as far as PayPal goods and services only, nothing, no other method.
But you usually get the money. Okay, so Ronnie says you got a tack cluster. I reach out to Tremayne Truck Parts on Instagram. I say, hey, I would like to buy this. You say, okay, ship the $400. Give me $400 PayPal goods and services, and here's the shipping, and I'm going to send you an email or a text, and boom, you're good to go. But you're waiting for the money to clear, because isn't there some deal with PayPal too that the guys it won't clear, it takes so long to clear, and the money needs to go into your account, or is there a time frame there?
So once in a while we run into that where the money doesn't hit right away, and I don't know why, and we've never figured out why. And I've had it take 3 days, but generally as soon as you push that send button, Ronnie pushes send on PayPal to Tremayne's Trucks, and it's like 2 seconds later, it shows up on my PayPal. And then at that point, hey, payment received, you'll have a tracking number on this day, and I get it boxed up and shipped out and provide a tracking number. Now, if it all goes through PayPal, we can print a shipping label through PayPal, and PayPal sends Ronnie a message on PayPal with that tracking number. So it makes it a lot easier all around. But yes, that's how I do it, is you pay first, and I do have people once in a while that are leery, and they're like, well, how do I know? And I try to walk them through the PayPal goods and services thing, that, you will get your money back if I screw you, scam you, sell you the wrong part that, not as described. And they're like, well, I'm not sending the money unless you send the part first. And I'm like, well, no, I have no recourse to get my part back at all after that. I don't do it. I do once in a while get people that they don't understand. They're old school. They do cash like myself. I'm a cash kind of guy, but I have caught up, and, and sometimes you just can't convince them. And there's no way I'm sending, as much as this does sound ridiculous, I'm not sending someone a part before I get paid, but you are sending me the money before I send the part.
Yeah, no,
You
that
know?
doesn't sound ridiculous at all on my end. I mean, you've earned your reputation. You don't go buy a TV and say, I want the TV first, then I'm going to pay for it. You don't buy a
Yeah, yeah.
refrigerator.
You don't go
That's
down
not
there.
the way
Yeah.
that works. That's why we just need to make sure that the audience in the world knows that you can trust both Tremayne and Tom, and you're completely vetted. You've been in the business for, decades, and you know what you're doing. You know what you're talking about. I want to make sure the customer is protected, but I really want to make sure you guys are protected too. And it's a frustration, and to think that some yahoos out there like, yeah, no, you need to send me the part. Yeah, okay, I'll send it right
Yeah.
now. There it goes. It just went in the
Yeah.
magic mail.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
on its way to you right now. You're gonna build this awesome truck. Yeah, eat a dick.
Yep.
And I'll give some advice, because I'm pretty savvy with these scammers, to say the least. I was on a full-on scammer hunt for like 6 months on Facebook. I was wasting a lot of my time trying to prevent the
She's the sheriff, dude. Scammer sheriff.
man. I was on it big time, and I discovered it was a waste of time, because then I had people getting upset with me. I'm like, I'm calling out the scammers. Anyways, if you're buying something from somebody on Instagram or Facebook, and you're just not sure, and you got some red flags, again, goods and services will protect you all the way around. And the thing is, scammers will not do business as goods and services, because they can get in trouble for that. And they know it, so they don't ever accept friends and family.
No, they want friends and family because they want
friends
the
and
free
family.
money. Yeah.
Yeah,
they want the money.
Goods. Yeah, they won't accept goods and services. So one thing you can do to kind of vet people before is ask the seller to write your name on a piece of paper and take a picture with the part with your name and today's date on there. And I've done that with scammers and had them send me a Photoshop of the same picture with my name written on a piece of paper. And it's like, one day I tried to go and take the same exact picture twice of a part, in frame. You know what I mean? Where the part was exactly in frame, the shadow was the same, everything. One day I even did it by the time. It's like, okay, I took this picture at 2:31 p.m. from this location right here. The part was right there in this exact spot, and I marked it all out. I could not take the exact picture twice to save my life. But the scammer sent me back the exact same framed picture, but with my name written on a piece of paper. And it's like, dude, your Photoshop is great, but I still know you're a scammer. Ask now, with new phones and FaceTime, ask for a walk around video with that person. Scammers will answer the phone and speak to you in English and talk a good talk. And I was just talking, I think it was Jeff, AZ Parts Locator, it might have been. And he had a scammer. He got on the phone and said this guy was very knowledgeable about trucks, telling him differences between the 3 and the 4 and blah, 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 blah. And so this guy either had taken some notes and was reading off of notes, or maybe had some experience, and he was a full-blown scammer, but he was armed with some information enough to make people confident. I've talked to several of these scammers. Just because they answer the phone and send you an address in North Carolina means nothing at all. So ask for a video, ask for your name written on a piece of paper with the date next to that same part. And don't just glance at it and be like, oh, cool, he did it. Look at it, make sure it's not Photoshopped, that it's not the same picture. Ask for backside shots, ask for descriptions. Make sure that I had a guy sending me pictures of clusters, and the backside was a different cluster than the front side. Because the front side was a tack dash and the backside wasn't a tack dash.
I really like what you're saying. It doesn't have to be your name. It can be whatever you're telling that person. I have done that. I had a scammer that I was trying to buy something on Facebook. I think they were out of New Mexico, and they wanted me to send the money, and it wasn't even parts. It was something else. And it was on Facebook, but yeah, you can say, hey, I want you to write down supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and I want you to put that on the thing, and I want you to film that. Okay, now I know that's real. Now, whether or not you're still even going to send it is still kind of hard. There is some blind trust there.
Yes. And, it's not only the overseas scammers stealing pictures and whatnot. It's the guys that exist. They are real people, and they do have truck parts, but they're just crooks. and they're right here in the United States. They're not in Cameroon, they're right here. And I know one that I tried my best to expose, and I had some dealings with him, and I actually had to lean on him to get him to provide some parts that a friend of mine had bought and he never sent. And I was getting just he'd since deleted his account and changed his Instagram completely after. There was a mess, to say the least, but he was just taking people's money and not sending them their parts, and I know a few of them, one or two of them I've met in person. And like I said, the one guy, I leaned on him and he brought my buddy's parts to Turlock. And it's funny because he and I knew all about him, but didn't tell him what was up, other than the one time he wanted me to send him money for a bumper. And I said, I'm not sending you any money, no matter what. You bring it to Turlock and I'll pay you cash when you get there. And he kind of took offense to that. And so I told him at that point, I was like, look, dude, I know all about this person, that person, this person, that person. He kind of got real quiet on me and goes, I'll see you at Turlock, And then that was a couple years ago. Then this year I leaned on him. I was like, hey, dude, I'm going to Turlock and I want my buddy's parts brought to me at Turlock. And if not, I'm going to stop by your shop on my way home. And he didn't like that very much either, but he brought him, dropped him off in my spot, got in his truck and left without saying a word, and it's like,
yeah, you're right.
How do you expect to be treated?
Tom, what do you got? What do you prefer to ship? Do you prefer to everybody just come to the yard, or do you got any juicy stories?
It's a lot of people, they're once bitten, twice shy when it comes to getting stuff shipped to them, paying for stuff in advance off the internet. On that truck board, there used to be kind of like just this unwritten rule there. I mean, everybody that was on there, if you were a bad seller, boom, you got kicked off the board and you were outed immediately.
You got outed immediately.
Yeah. And if you were trying to screw somebody, everybody knew it. They brought it right up there and you were done. It took a hell of a lot to get back in there, get your foot back in the door. And now on these other outlets, these other internet outlets, it's just it's had guys that are just afraid. You could tell he's like, man, I just got screwed out of $300 and I'm just afraid to send the money, and you take pictures for them with a date on it, or their name or something like that with like you say, a different picture. And so they can see that you're not trying to get one over on them. But it's pretty tough, and I do like, when people show up, I put that in all my ads. Everything here is available for pickup. And I'd rather people just showed up and picked up their parts. They can look it over and make sure that it's everything that they wanted it to be and hoped and dreamed for. And, they can just get it here in person. But, not everybody's going to be able to go across the nation or wherever, to pick up parts from us. So eventually there's some trust, and I sell some things on eBay and eBay's got a pretty good, they get their cut, but on the other hand, they got a pretty good vetting system on there. So, I sell things on eBay as well, but, I hate scammers, and I go through there every once in a while and just start looking at what people are posting. And it's like, to me, you can spot a scammer a mile away.
Yes.
It's just crazy how it's just ridiculous. Like you say, if it's too good of a deal to be true, then it probably is. If you know what a realistic price to ship a seat is, it's $500. You're not going to buy a whole complete custom interior for $500 or $700. It's stupid. But
yeah,
I don't know. It's a tough deal. It's something you can't live without, but it's hard to live with sometimes,
Yeah, I think I'll do and I don't really do much, but those little windows in social media. Again, I'm just not on that Facebook as much. I just can't spend the time. But I'm gonna make a little trusted parts person thing on. I don't even know what we call them on Instagram. Those little windows where you put shit up at the top. I'm just gonna, because No, not a story. Well, I think you can put your stories up there, but I guess they're just whatever those little circles are. Uh, Either way, I think they might be. I'm gonna somehow make it so the two of you, and then I've also interviewed a guy named Square Body Mike. Even though you think it would be Square Bodies, it's he sells OBSs. I told him he should.
Yeah. Yeah.
I told him change your name, but he's just always he's kind of a wild man, but he's
Yeah.
out of Ohio and he is a hustler, man, and he is legit. And in the OBS world, I feel like in the OBS world, for it's 10 times as bad as it is in the C10 world because and for the audience, when they say the board, they're talking about 67 to 72 truck forum, the old school forum, where, you know, it was a smaller world back then where it was one place. Everybody was in one place and you had your build forums, you had your reputation and you could see different things. And then you would go to the parts board and there would be different people in there that you would know that were making parts or selling parts or were very trusted. And it was a little bit more, I believe
it was a controlled environment.
Well, it was more personal because you were dealing with that guy who you could see how to page and was building trucks and making parts or whatever it was. But now it's a little bit more footloose and fancy free. And I think that we need to make sure we let people know that, you know, hey, these guys are trusted parts people. And there's plenty of them out there. But the problem that I have with it is that you know, this is your living. And it's like to think that you have to spend a lot of time justifying to somebody, hey, bro, you want the part or not? I'm not a scammer. How do you prove that to somebody is a waste of time. I understand you have to do that. And that's why I would just, you know, it'd be my honor to say, dude, these are trusted guys. These are your guys. These are the guys that sell parts, know parts, and will take care of you. You know what I mean? And I guess another question.
Stamp of approval.
Yeah. It you know, obviously I have a big reach and it's like, dude, these are real guys that aren't scamming. I do get people that I do get a lot. I don't get it quite as much as I used to, but I do get people who are like, hey, do you know this guy? Does this guy look real? Facebook guy. And that's what I'll usually do. I'll literally, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, I'll reach out, I'll act like I'm going to buy something, or I'll straight up say, this is who I am. Hey, do you want to get on the pod? Can we talk? And a lot of guys don't want to do that. They really don't. But I will say that there's also guys that seem pretty legit and they also get known for screwing people as well. And I don't know how you stop that because sometimes you're just like, people don't care. They're just because once somebody gets screwed, then they maybe lost a prospective buyer, but there's 10 other guys in line to buy whatever it is that they're trying to sell. It's a balance, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's definitely it's kind of a hard deal, but that's why it's, you know, like I said, these guys have been slinging parts for a long time. Do you have a preferred shipping method? Do you have, do you tell guys, hey, I try to look at USPS, UPS, FedEx, DHL, whatever I got to do because I want to save you the money as well. But hey, the shipping is the shipping. I can only do what I can do.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You just ship. You ask them if they prefer something. You know, sometimes people get better USPS service as compared to FedEx or UPS. But on the other hand, maybe it costs a lot more to ship that stuff a certain way, you know. So all you can do is throw the options out there, and you know, USPS used to be really reliable, it seemed like, and they seem like they're slipping a little bit. But certain things you can ship for $4 or $5 rather than $10 or $15, you know. So it and shipping truck freight, that's a cost up there because it's expensive and shipping companies destroy a lot of stuff in transit. So it's kind of scary to ship truck freight for me.
It seems like USPS, if it's $10 or smaller, it's probably your best bet. And then it seems like when it gets bigger, UPS, FedEx, and then when it gets really big, then you're going truck freight, you know. And I know like Mike Losh Slosh Tubbs, for example, when you're looking at the buddy buckets and the slot, you know, his biggest problem is just, hey, you know, the amount it takes to ship. So that's why he's always trying to make deals with people when he's going to shows is like pre-order, and it helps me get the shit to you, and you don't even have to pay near as much. And ta-da, it shows up in one piece.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. The
Yeah.
the pre-sold at a swap meet when you're traveling or a show is the ultimate way to go, because you don't have to box it, package it, wait for a truck, put it on a truck, all that. It makes it so much easier.
Have either of you ever tried to inventory everything and, in a perfect world, go through I look back at going again back to Dave at Jurassic or Rick's Truck Parts, and you have to have the man there. You have to the brain that's your guys' brain for what you have, and oh yeah, I've got that buried over here. Have you ever tried to inventory different stuff so people that's a kind of a perfect example, is like, hey, I'm headed out to Carlisle. What do you need? And then this is what I can bring. And is that just too hard?
I usually put that out there before any swap meet I go to, that I can bring, specific items if I'm given enough heads up. And quite often I'll get, one person, or sometimes I get 3, 4, 5 people that want me to bring stuff to them, that request. And sometimes I just get people that hit me up. Hey, you going to Pomona? Can you bring me a, and I'll tell you one thing that really, really, really bothers me is when someone sends me a list of parts that they want, regardless of how large or small the parts will be, but they'll send me a list, let's say 5 pieces or more. Can you bring this to me? Or they want me to bring them something, and I tell them, look, that's not something I would usually take to a swap meet. So if you're not 100% going, I don't want to bring it, because it just takes up real estate and it's heavy. But if people order parts from me to take to a swap meet and they don't show up, text, call, message me like, hey, my dog's groomer best friend's tire changer, passed away, and my grandma's sick, whatever it might be. That's you're not getting parts delivered to the swap meet ever again. You are done. A simple text or phone call. And yes, if some close family member was to pass away, I understand that the parts are the last thing on your mind anymore. But when your neighbor invited them to a barbecue instead, it's like, obviously you don't care very much about my time and my efforts. And so you're done. You're out. I'll sell you parts, but I will never special order to a swap meet for that person again. And I explain that to people.
Do you usually want the money up front, or are you just kind of like, oh no, okay, I'll bring it? And does that change your mind once bitten, twice shy?
Well, it depends a lot on what it is. There have been times where I'm like, the only way I'm taking that, like if somebody wants me to bring an axle to the swap meet, you're sending me a deposit, a non-refundable deposit. And I'm keeping that. If you don't show up, I'm keeping the axle and your deposit, because the chances of selling an axle, and I don't want to take an axle to the swap meet. I don't want to load it. I don't want the space it takes up. There are some things that I will tell people, you have to send me a deposit or I'm not taking it. Generally, I don't ask for a deposit, but I do make myself clear that if you don't show up to collect these parts, don't ever bother asking me to bring you something specific again. You just go to the swap meet and take your chances that I have it. Again, because a simple phone call, text message me on Instagram, Facebook Messenger takes you, 15 seconds out of your day, where I might have spent an hour. And a lot of times I'll get a request Friday morning. Somebody like, hey dude, can you bring me this? And I'm like, look, it's going to take me an hour or more to find and collect all this stuff up. And I got a busy day. So, and they're like, oh, please, bro, I really need it. Come on, man, help me out here. And it's like, okay. And then I put myself out. So then I'm either late for garage talk Friday night, or I'm late for dinner, or I'm up till 10 packing my trailer, or whatever it might be. I don't make it to Cruising Grand, and then they don't show up at Pomona. And I'm like, why did I do that? Why would I have done that for that person to not even care one bit? When I explained to them that it's going to take me, if you're not sure you're going, and it's always the same thing. Oh man, I got drunk on Saturday night. And I'm like, yeah, I was at Pomona Saturday night. So
I know
I got 4 hours of sleep. I have no sympathy whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I will take orders, special orders for swap meets, and I do quite often,
What about new parts? I know, Tom, you obviously deal with new parts as well. You ventured into new parts because you probably felt like you kind of had to. Is that something that takes more time? It works out. The shipping affects part of that. How does the new part stuff? And then Tremayne, I don't think you really get much into new parts.
No.
No. So Tom, how's and really for the audience, you should know that as well. Tom owns Truckin' Crazy, and you can get a lot of new parts as well.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, I just started selling new parts just to supplement the used parts. A lot of the trucks eventually start to run out. They might have been great back, 20 years ago, but 10 years ago, but now they're pretty much finding trucks to part out is it's getting fewer and far between. Everybody, the junker that we would have parted out 10 years ago is now somebody's dream truck to rebuild. So I sell like precision weather stripping, Dakota Digitals, and old air conditioning systems, and just a lot of the stuff that lenses and bumpers and things that everybody needs. If they're putting in LMC orders, everybody's always forgetting something, and rather than having to wait another week to put another order in, they can just run by and grab it. And I like to be that guy over here in the East Valley, that has stuff. But I keep a lot of those parts in stock.
Well, I think too, what helps is because you have it in stock. For me personally, when I buy a new part from you, a lot of time I'm considering the shipping, and because you're getting the bigger freight that's coming through when you're getting orders in. But having, like, hey, okay, I need this, I need this idler arm. I need this. I want this. Oh, gee, this is hard to find. You have this. Or again, Tom has a lot of wheels. And then you're like, oh yeah, I've got all this stuff too. So it definitely helps balance. Do you find that because the new part inventory can be so much, you don't always know what to stock, or is it because your brain is wired from the used part, what to stock?
Doing just all the calls and messages and stuff. I got a pretty good idea what people are looking for, but anymore now with the square body stuff, that's added a whole other deal to it. Just there's so many parts to try to keep track of and try to keep in stock, and that gets pretty overwhelming. I mean, it's all the used parts. It's fairly easy, but the new stuff is, when you tack that on top of it, keeping track of it all. I can't say that I know everything in my inventory. I mean, I got a lot of it in my head, but I don't have a big computerized inventory, and I'm pretty much the only guy that deals with it, so I can't blame it on anybody else. But it's I try to stay on top of it, but I'm not doing hardly any OBS stuff because that's a whole other game that I don't even really want to get into. But square body stuff, there's a lot of people doing them right now, and everything just supplements each other. It's crazy how it gets. 1 week it's hot on 67 to 72 stuff, and then all of a sudden it's 73 to 87, and then somebody's building a 55 to 9 truck, and it just keeps going around and around. It's pretty good to just be able to have a little bit of everything in stock.
Do you ever see an ebb and flow from the seasons? Tremayne, you're in California where the weather's always nice. Out here in Arizona, it's hot as balls for 4 months, so you don't want to work on anything. Do you see a ebb and flow in what you're selling and moving? And then for the Arizona folks, or I guess national, do you see where when Barrett Jackson or Mecum some car or truck goes, and all of a sudden somebody's like, oh, I got to start building this. What do you got? Do you see different peaks and valleys in the kind of from that?
Yes. Wintertime, the back east is when I sell the most parts to the back east, and the north, the upper Midwest, I guess you would call it, the snowy states, where they're snowed in for months at a time and they don't want to go outside. There's no car shows. They're not driving their hobby cars because there's 3 feet of snow on the ground. So you see that, and then all around like California, early spring with car show season, even though there's cars and copies and events all year long, there's still you still see at springtime, that big mad rush to get their car ready for the car show season, the cruise season, cruise nights. All the local cruise nights have just started up down here. So you do see that a lot. Is it's funny because it seems to be, like I said, the winter is when all the guys back east and in the upper snowy states, they're buying parts because they're doing a full revamp, and then in the summer, early summer, the Southern California guys are getting their rides ready for show season at the last minute, And then, of course, Barrett Jackson does nothing to the price of parts per se, but it never fails. Not long after like this last Barrett Jackson with the Blazers going nuts, everybody's hitting me up for a Blazer. Find me a Blazer. I want a Blazer. I'm looking for a reasonably priced Blazer. It's like, if there was a reasonably priced Blazer, I would own it. Okay. And I don't want to own a Blazer, so I would be flipping it. But if there was reasonably priced Blazers out there, I would buy all of them and be flipping them as fast as I possibly could, but they're not out there,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it does drive the price of the vehicles up, not so much the parts.
You see the same thing, Tom?
Yeah, pretty much. When the auctions are coming to town, everything gets pretty crazy. Usually 2 months before Barrett, everybody's on the, just or to say Dino's. I mean, there's always this last minute crunch. I think people just love to have the last minute crunch sometimes.
Yes.
I used to think it was just like, they were just procrastinating, but now I think people just love to just, I don't know, go to the garage for a month and a half or 2 months straight and just go at it to try to get something finished up, but it's Dino's. It's always really busy before that. And then Barrett's busy before that. And then, whatever other auctions go on here after that, and then we got the winter visitors that come along, and they're usually pretty busy buying stuff to haul back. And we'll see how the summer goes. It's usually I'm kind of ready for a little bit of a break in the summer when it gets really hot out. But the past few years, trucks have been so crazy that there's not a huge break in the summer like there used to be. So
yeah, well, you got that shade canopy now, so give you a little bit more shade over there, because it can be miserable I'm the worst when it comes to Tom, because I'm at 4:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30. Hey, dude, I'm on my way. And he's like, yeah, cool. I'm at home drinking a beer, so don't waste your time because it's hot as hell. And I don't know why you call me and text me after 4 o'clock when you know that I'm not going to be there, and I'm wore out from the day. So leave me alone.
Yeah, that's like hauling parts to the swap meet. You call ahead. Hey, I'm going to be there at 6. Okay, great. I'm going to haul your parts to my house. Swing by there and pick them up, and can have a nice, enjoyable time doing it.
Yeah, it is funny making that swing. Okay, so just kind of wrapping things up, because I've taken up a lot of your time, and I do appreciate it. It's been fun. What's the craziest thing you've sold and or shipped, or both?
Oh, wow.
I sold a whole Suburban pair of bedsides to a guy once up in Oregon, and his brother came by and picked him up with an 18-wheeler.
So you did you cut him? I mean, you cut it all out because did he just have, was it a square body then?
No, it was a 67 to 72. Yep.
Just needed that whole, it was all rusted out, huh?
Yeah. Actually, he said he was going to reproduce them, and I don't know if he ever did or not, but his brother was a truck driver, and it was a pretty nice Suburban, actually. But just, back then, Suburbans were just Suburbans. They weren't potential anything really. And to cut those great big long bedsides off, and he came and picked them up and took them back, and they were pretty happy with them.
Yeah, that was probably a lot of work cutting those out.
They suck. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, dude, just buy the whole Suburban.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, that might take the cake. Tremayne, what's something that you've sold and shipped or been
Man,
even requested?
I could go on and on about this for days. Number one is the people that come to buy a large truck part with a very small car.
Yeah.
And one that sticks out, there's several that stick out. One that sticks out in my mind is a young kid at Pomona a few years ago. I had a couple of short bedsides. He walks up, goes absolutely nuts. I think he did a backflip for real. Young kid. And he buys them. He goes, okay, I'll be back in a bit to get them. I said, all right, cool deal. So he comes by Sunday, late in the day for the swap meet, noon or so. And he's in a Toyota Camry. And I'm like, what do you plan to do with these? He goes, oh, I'm going to strap them on the roof. And I go, is this your mom's car? Jokingly, he's like, yeah, it is. So I gave him a blanket. I donated a moving blanket. He had gone to Harbor Freight and got straps. But we put these two bedsides on the roof of a Toyota Camry, and he drove to Santa Barbara with bedsides on the roof of his mom's Toyota Camry. And I helped him strap them on there. They weren't going nowhere, and that is my favorite though, is people that come, and like that kid went to the swap meet not expecting to buy bedsides, but the people that drive down knowing that they're going to buy a bedside or a tailgate or a door, and they show up in this little tiny car and you're like, oh, how did you think this was going to go? You're buying the door. You should know the size of it, and,
Yep.
they're all worried about, oh, well, this car gets 40 miles of the gallon. I'm like, well, yeah, now you got to go home and get your truck. So,
Yeah.
Or you're going to do $1,000 worth of damage to the car.
Don't bring common sense into this shit.
Yeah, I know. I do that all too often, and it's just makes me scratch my head and wonder why they did what they did and why I brought common sense into the conversation.
Yeah,
but
you can't do that.
I could go on shipping stuff all over the world, stuff getting lost at customs and showing up, 6 months later or a year later, or, just on and on and on with the crazy, but the packing stuff into a car those are the best ones by far, is the packing large items into a small car. That's what always cracks me up. I had a guy show up. Guy bought a wood bed kit. It was used. I got a truck that had camper on its whole life. The wood bed was absolutely perfect, like day one perfect. So I sold all the wood for a long bed, and I don't know if you all realize how heavy that is when it's all combined. One board alone isn't. So it's all the metal strips and all of the wood pieces. The guy says, oh, I'm going to send my brother down. He's going to Carlsbad for business this week. So this guy shows up. This was probably, 5-6 years ago, in a brand new Porsche SUV when they first introduced those Porsche SUVs. This thing was brand new. Paper plates, probably had 900 miles on it. And I'm like, well, how do you plan on hauling this stuff home? He goes, oh, it'll fit inside my car. It's 9 feet from the dash to the back of the car. And I said, okay. I tried to explain to him. I said, this stuff's really heavy and it's going to damage your leather interior and this is an expensive car. It's going to do damage. He's all, these are pretty well-built cars. I remember him saying that. And so we put all this lumber and we're about halfway done loading it. And he goes, man, this is a lot more than I thought. And I said, we're not even halfway there. And he's like, oh, maybe I should have rented a truck or had him, blah, blah, blah. But I said, at any point we can pull the stuff out. I don't want to damage your car. He's like, no, I'm here. Let's take it. And man, we had all those boards stacked up on top of the seats, the back seat and the driver's passenger seat. We took the headrest out. The boards are all the way up against the windshield. I'm like, if he hits the brakes, he's going to wipe out his $3,500 windshield. Probably did a lot of damage to the leather seats, the frames, and nope, he was dead set. Take that stuff. So we loaded it all in his brand new Porsche SUV and he drove off. I never heard another word from him, But again, nice. I can only imagine the damage it did to that car hauling that stuff, even with no uneventful trip,
Stupid is as stupid does.
Stupid is as stupid does, and they do it every single day.
That's why I have a job.
Yeah, that's exactly why you have a job.
That is why I have a job. If you only knew how many stupid people and who calls 911, it is a special thing.
Yes, my dad was a fireman paramedic, so I heard lots and lots of stories.
People aren't getting smarter. They're not getting smarter.
No, they are not. They are not.
Yeah. Tom, you're about ready. You got a good story?
I did have a dude show up in a LS swapped Volvo station wagon once in the rain, and he came to pick up a Dana 60 rear end, and I said, man, are you sure? And he said, yeah, it'll fit. It's no problem. Well, it did fit. We took the forklift and loaded that Dana 60 right into the back into that Volvo, and he was happy.
Oh my God.
He was happy. It took off, and I think I took a picture of it at the time, actually, because I couldn't believe it. And he's still a Chevy truck guy. He's been back to buy more parts, but
that's one of those deals where you go to stop and you can't stop because you're practically doing a wheelie down the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
That reminded me, if you're done, Tom, that reminded me of one of the best ones. I had a 351 V6, a big V6 GMC V6. And a guy that I know, a friend of a friend, wanted it. I don't know why, but he wanted it. So, those things are boat anchors. They're impossible to sell. So I told him, whatever, $20, $40, whatever it was. I knew he had a Suzuki Samurai. I said, but you're going to have to get a truck or I'll haul it wherever it's going for a fee. He's like, no, we can put it in my Samurai. So he shows up in a Suzuki Samurai. Those engines are heavier. They're heavier than a big block Chevy.
They are.
Okay.
They're
the 305 V6 weighs more than a big block Chevy. The 351's even heavier. So he insists that we drop this thing in the back of his Suzuki Samurai. And I said, well, the back compartment of the Samurai is not much larger than the engine anyways, but I was like, we should really strap it to the roll bar and the passenger seat. He's like, no, just put it against the back. I said, there's nothing to strap it to. Anyways, this is one of those guys you can't argue with because he'll drag you down to his level and win from experience. So I dropped the thing in the back of the Samurai right where he wanted it, up against the tailgate. He put one little tiny strap around it and called it good. And I'm like, okay, the tires are barely touching. As he's driving away, the front tires are literally coming off the ground as he's driving away, for real, doing wheelies. Wasn't going far, thank goodness. But where my shop was, there was a driveway ramp down to the main road. And I told him, I go out that way where there's no ramp. Don't go straight out where the ramp is, because you go down that ramp, that engine's going to slide forward. Well, again, he was much smarter than I ever could think of being. So he went down the ramp. I watched that engine slide forward. Oof. It bit both of his seats.
Jarred his back.
I'm surprised it didn't kill him. And he went driving off down the road with that thing, and it destroyed both of the front seats in that Samurai. And he drove off doing wheelies. And I'll tell you, we were laughing. So that was in the VCR, recorder days before good phones and cameras and stuff. If you didn't have a VCR, I wish I would have got a video of that thing driving away, doing wheelies and the engine sliding.
That's awesome.
And it's funny, like Tom, when you're talking about putting that Dana 60, it's these people want to argue, oh no, it'll be fine. It's like, dude, I've hauled these things. I know the damage they can do. I know what it weighs. This is not a good idea. Not for me. It's a great idea for me because I'm selling this part and it's gone out of my life. But it's not a good idea for you. I'm not trying to save anything of my own. I'm trying to help you out, and they want no part of that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's entertaining. Tales of the used parts guy. I guess we could have a phases of death and who made it home and who didn't make it home with the Dana 60 and the 351. So, do you guys feel that? I'll take you out with this. You got into truck parts because you were into trucks. Are you still into trucks as much? I know, Tremayne, you've got that little 68, that gem, and do you find that you're not into trucks as much? Is it the painter's house isn't painted and the plumber's house, toilet doesn't work quite as well? Do you find that? Do you find a balance?
Yes and no. The gold truck's not mine, it's a customer truck. Obviously you see the condition of the cran box, which usually the cran box is mechanically sound, ready to go. And I've decided at this point, I am never going to paint that truck because it's kind of my identity. But, and my trucks do get neglected, but I use them daily. So I also can only let them be neglected to a point where I have to keep up on them. But I am still just as passionate about 67 to 72s as I ever was. I still love them as much as I ever did. I still get super excited. Every truck I meet, I have to open the glove box. And when I meet somebody with a truck, and especially if it's a 72 custom deluxe, I want to see if it's a Highlander. When I meet somebody with a truck, I so badly want to like push them down and open the door and open the glove box before they have a chance to ask me why I want to look in their glove box. And that's really legitimately, I get so wound up and anxious waiting for the right opportunity to ask them if I can look in their glove box, which sounds so very strange to want to look in someone's glove box, but I want to see the spid. But I really do. I mean, when I see a new truck around town, I want to meet that truck. I want to know that truck. I want to see it. When I see a truck sitting somewhere, Pomona, I want to go walk and look at every single truck there is. I want to drive them all. I am very much still I love working on trucks, whether I'm taking them apart, putting them together, transforming them, fixing them, whatever. I truly am just as passionate about this as I was in the 90s, if
That's
not
awesome.
maybe more.
Well, and that's why, to be honest with you, you're sitting where you are. I love both of you guys, and you make the community better, and that's what's so cool. And to think like, I just want to meet the truck. Hey, nice to meet you, John. I want to meet your truck, and it's that excitement. I remember I was at Waxahachie again, and a guy had a 72 grapefruit 4-wheel drive long bed, and he was an old boy too, 60 something years old. And I was chasing this guy. It's the end of the show. And I'm like, I got to meet your truck, and luckily for him, or luckily for me, he was a great guy. Ended up emailing me a few times and showed me more pictures and the story. And you just love the journey. So it's just like I said, the trucks are cool. The people are cooler, and we're just lucky. And I love that you guys are still as passionate as, you were. Well, at least Tremayne is. I don't know if Tom is.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's all good. It's fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hopefully, I think the biggest thing is that the people don't, unfortunately, people tend to ruin it for people. It's that old, the more I know people, the more I like my dog. And like some of the stories, you just hope that you don't get burned and you don't get scammed. And at the end of the day, when you go to the swap meets, you're excited about slinging parts. You're excited about slinging, making money and meeting people and meeting the truck. And because at the end of the day, it's what it's all about. We're just really lucky that these crazy trucks have brought us all together.
Well, and a big part of it to me is the people that I've met along the way. Both of you guys, I would not have met either one of you if it wasn't for trucks, for sure. Then the whole C10 community, the people I've bought trucks from that I've kept in contact with, that I've made friends through, the steady customers, the one-time customers that I still see at Cars and Coffee and Cruising Grand or the shows or whatever, the people I see once a year, the people I've met along the way from every angle and every aspect of this, and the good friends. I was just up at Turlock, and I'll tell you, I love that Central Valley C10 community. They are just like every C10 community is. They are just awesome people. I mean, I go up there, I get treated like a rock star when I get there. There's so many good people in this community, and the trucks are cool, the people are cooler. And I've made some very, Robert, my co-host and now stepson-in-law / best friend, I met him directly because of this truck thing. He had a 71 GMC, needed parts for. He got turned on to me. And there's another one. I did not like Robert when I first met him at all, not one bit.
Have you guys
Now
noticed a trend when it comes to Tremayne?
I don't like anybody. Okay, I don't.
No, you
I
just
love everybody.
it takes a little while. I know we all know who you really like, Nelly, but it takes a little time to warm up to Tremayne. Look at him, he's fucking Wyatt Earp. And he's
Yes.
the scammer sheriff. I like that one. We need to make it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
But really the people is what makes it for me. The people that I so love someone coming up to me at an event, whatever event it is, and like, hey man, I got my truck on the road, and they bought parts from me, whether I was a pivotal part of them getting on the road or I sold them a wiper knob in the middle of July when they're not going to need it for 4 or 5 months. Doesn't matter. The fact that they look at me as someone they want to come over and be like, hey, I got my truck, check it out. And that means the world. When people come up to me at the shows and swap meets and introduce themselves and say, hey, I follow your page, I follow your YouTube, that makes my day. I am so totally sincere and for real about that. It really, really makes my day to have that kind of interaction and that kind of impact on people that, hey, I learned something from your YouTube, or, I bought a part from you years ago. There's a guy that I got to know through Instagram from Pomona, a young kid. And one day we're hanging out at Pomona. He goes, yeah, man, I've known you since I was a little kid. I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah, my uncle and my dad used to buy parts from you at Pomona when I was 5 years old, and they dragged me to Pomona. And I was like, no kidding. He's like, yeah, I was always at your spot when I was a little kid, man. You were their first spot every time, and I'm like, wow, here's the second generation now of guys. And I try to treat everybody fair and honest, because of that right there. Is all you've got is your word and your reputation and how the world sees you, and you have nothing else,
Yeah,
but
and you're right. And in the world that we live in, that's pretty, that you like you talk about with the second generation, and they're like, oh no, call Tremayne, oh call Tom, and it's funny when you refer a guy, like for me in the fire department, guy gets a truck, or just in the C10 community, hey yeah, call Tom, he's on this side of town, da da da, and then another guy I'll be like, oh yeah, I called Tom, and you're like, well I told Willie. Well now Willie tells Pete, and Pete tells Dick, and Dick tells Harry, and you're like, holy shit, and it's that word of mouth, because
yes,
that is a pretty powerful thing. Let's talk real quick. I'm going to take you guys out so you guys can watch. Now you guys are taking a break, you and Bubs there from Robert from Bub's Garage, but you guys are taking a break right now, Garage Talk?
Yes, we stopped doing it in the summertime during Cruising Grand, because this whole thing started when they canceled Cruising Grand on Friday nights, and I was like, well, I can't go home, my wife will kill me, and I don't know what to do. So anyway, when Cruising Grand starts up, which last Friday was the first night, we kill Garage Talk for the summer and then come back after Cruising Grand ends in September. So yeah, we're off right now.
Yeah, so you guys can watch Garage Talk live Friday nights. And you're gonna have it's like a 4-month break.
Yeah, we'll be back. I think it's the first Friday of October, if I'm not mistaken, is when we'll be back on Garage Talk Live.
All right, cool. So you guys can check that out. Obviously, these guys are vetted. So if you need 67 to 72 parts for sure, Tremayne Truck Parts, you guys can get a hold of Tom at Truckin' Crazy. Tom, is there a Truckin' _Crazy? And remember, the crazy is with a K. Is there an underscore or no?
Yeah, it is.
So Truckin' _ you guys can get them. Obviously, Tremayne even brought up Jeff. Jeff is just a great guy out here in Arizona as well. Arizona Parts Locator. He finds some of the hardest parts to find out there. He definitely is also kind of into the scammer. He gets fired up when those scammers, and I don't blame him. He's watermarking everything now. He's here in Arizona. And then Square Body Mike, again, he's been on. I interviewed him for OBS. I'm trying to think of some other guys that I bought from that I know for facts, but I'll start doing that where I don't know what those little round circles are. I'm sure I'll get blown up. People will be like, oh, that's your story box or something. But like you said, we've got a lot of guys that are really good guys. There's another guy here Tom and I talk about is Adam. He's not that far from where Tom's located. And yeah, there's really good guys picking out there, finding parts. Facebook's great because you can find shit. You just don't know whether or not it's going to be real or not.
Yes. And I want to throw this out there, and I get this a lot. A lot of people hit me up and they want to know if this person or that person is legit. And a lot of times it's a one-time seller, somebody that's selling a leftover part, not anybody that's in the business. And sometimes it's a scammer, but they'll hit me up. What do you know about this guy? Is he legit? Can I trust him? What do you know about this business, that business? To everybody listening, feel free to hit me up if you have a question about somebody's authenticity, their integrity. If I know them, if on whatever it might be, if you think somebody's a scammer or somebody's pulling your leg or lying to you or sending you in the wrong direction, I'll do whatever I can. And I've even stopped what I'm doing and done a little investigating and found that they're a scammer, or they're, I don't just throw out a reply. Yep. I either take it to heart or know right away, have an answer right away. So
Tremayne, they'll tell you whether or not they're authentic. You just don't ask them if you like him.
Yes, don't ask if I like that person, but I will tell you, even if I don't like them.
This is a real guy selling real parts, but he's a dickhead and he pissed me off, but now I like him.
Yes.
I'm going to help with that. So for you guys out there, if you're, whether you're in Minnesota, there is a guy, Sean, he bought Yellowstone from Barrett, but he's a really good guy too. So let's get that going, and I'll try to do something on social media to help with that. But obviously, Tom from Truckin' Crazy, Tremayne from Tremayne's Truck Parts, Jeff from Arizona AZ Parts Locator, and Mike, if you're in the OBS market, very vetted, very good dudes who will not screw you over, will do everything they can to help you. And, if my word isn't good enough, then let's find somebody. We'll find Dino, or we'll find somebody, John Orrell, somebody who, you trust and you love. And we got to make sure that these guys don't waste their precious time trying to prove to you that they're not scammers, because they're not.
Yes. And I do know a lot of the legit sellers in this community on a very close basis, so again,
yeah, go to a swap meet near you, and you'll find out, who people are, and there is nothing better than just meeting them, shaking their hand, talking to them. And then what we find out too, a lot of times it's just where a guy who is done building a truck or a handful of trucks, and they just have extra stuff. And sometimes those extra things, they might have bought one grill, two grills, they found an extra, they found a better one, and maybe his second best is something that you can throw on your truck. So again, it's about networking and meeting the people behind the parts, really, at the end of the day.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I appreciate your guys' time. This was as much fun as I thought it was going to be, and I'm glad we finally made it happen. And again, guys out there, give them a follow. Tom at Truckin' Crazy, Tremayne at Tremayne's Truck Parts, Jeff at AZ Parts Locator. Again, Mike's out there in Ohio. And we'll help you along the way. We appreciate it. Thanks for taking your time to share the love, share the story, and share the passion.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. Damn, son. Did you make it? 2 hours. Nice work if you did. Again, we'll be back. We've got some great pods. Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for a great week. Tom and Tremayne, thanks for doing what you do for the scene. Thanks for saying true. You got those old school parts. You got all that knowledge. If you need it, they got it. If they don't have it, you don't need it. And if you really, really need it, they probably know somebody that does have it. Good luck with that one. All right, guys. Peace.